The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F*** is a book by Mark Manson that will show you how to set up a true and meaningful value system, thus focusing on truly important things in life while completely ignoring the rest of the noise around you, allowing you to grow and improve faster. In this video, we will go over the key ideas and takeaways from The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, but before we do, feel free to subscribe and ring the notification bell for more personal finance, investing, business and motivation related content and weekly book summaries. Takeaway number 1. The problem of caring too much. Everyone around us is trying to convince us that the key to a better life is having something new, better or more of what we already have. Well, there's nothing wrong with wanting to improve, and it's likely to bring you at least some form of success. But the problem is that caring too much about too many things is not very good for your mental health. It makes people superficial and fake. True happiness lies in caring only about things that are true and actually important. A huge problem that results from caring too much are the feedback loops from hell. Let me give you an example. You're stressed out for whatever reason, and you realize that after a while, so now you become even more stressed because you're thinking about how stressed you are. And now the fact that you're stressed out and that you realize that thinking about it causes stress makes you even more stressed out. Yep, that's how feedback loops from hell emerge, making us overly stressed, anxious, neurotic, and causing ugly self-loathing. On the other hand, when you scroll through some social media, all you see is people sharing positive or exciting experiences and stories like going on a vacation, getting married, buying a new car, smashing the like button or something similar. And that further escalates the problem, cause here you are stuck in a feedback loop of hell while everyone else seems to be having fun. The key thing causing a problem here is you caring about what others do and what they think of you. So not caring about it is the solution for it. If you don't care about the fact that you feel bad, this short-circuits the loop instantly. The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience, and paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. Philosopher Alan Watts refers to this as the backwards law. If you pursue something, that in and of itself implies that you lack it, and that makes you feel bad. So the solution here seems to be to just stop caring and stop trying. Well, the problem with that strategy though is that you'll never end up achieving anything, at least when it comes to stop trying parts. When it comes to stop caring part, oftentimes the less you care about something, the less stressed out about it you'll become, so you'll end up doing better at it. Not caring about your insecurities automatically makes you more confident and charismatic. So the key is not to avoid the problem. The key is to face it and overcome any negative emotions tied to it. Any attempt to avoid the negatives only backfires, as the avoidance of suffering, as we concluded, is a form of suffering. Takeaway number 2. The art of not caring. Okay, not caring might seem simple enough, but it's really not that easy to do, or not to do. Caring too much about things we shouldn't care about causes a lot of pain and frustration. But you can learn how to not care about useless things by learning how to choose what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you based on your personal values. That again sounds easy, but it's very difficult and you're likely to fail at it multiple times. However, it's a very rewarding struggle and one that's massively worth taking. Bear in mind that this is not indifference to everything. It's simply not caring about things that you shouldn't care about in the first place. There are 3 subtleties that should help you clarify the matter. Subtlety number 1. Not caring doesn't mean being indifferent. It means being comfortable with being different. Subtlety number 2. To not care about adversity, you must first care about something more important than adversity. Subtlety number 3. Whether you realize it or not, you're always choosing what to care about. It's perfectly fine for things to go wrong ways sometimes. As a matter of fact, you should expect it. Nothing ever works out perfectly. But in this modern world, many people make their life seem perfect, and not being one of those makes a lot of people feel frustrated. This frustration is self-inflicted by caring about things that you shouldn't care about. Look, some type of suffering is inevitable no matter what you do. Life consists of failures, loss, regrets, and death at the end. Once you become comfortable with everything that life throws at you, you become practically invincible. Suffering is very useful. It's nature's preferred way to inspire huge change in us. Pain teaches us what we must pay attention to, and it shows us what is bad for us, so avoiding it altogether can be very damaging for our well-being. Pain, as you probably know by now, is not only physical. Psychological pain can be as painful as physical pain. Takeaway number 3. Happiness comes from solving problems. Don't hope for a life without problems. There's no such thing. Instead, hope for a life full of good problems. Problems never stop. They only get exchanged for other problems and or upgraded. Happiness comes from solving problems, not avoiding them. Avoiding problems only makes you miserable. So we could say that happiness is an activity and not something that passively comes to you. Happiness is a work in progress, and it will always be, simply because solving problems is a constant work in progress. The problems keep evolving, and with them so do the solutions. True happiness is when the problems you have are the ones you enjoy solving. Now, there are unfortunately two ways most people often mess up their potential for happiness and end up making their life way more complicated than it could be. Those are denial and victim mentality. You can't deny that your problems exist, and if you do, you will need to find ways to continuously distract yourself from reality. Denying your problems and blaming others for them might feel good in the short term, but will only harm you over the long run. Solving problems is hard and often uncomfortable, but will make you happy and might yield even more positive outcomes over the long run. So, instead of asking yourself what you want in life, try asking yourself what kind of problems you want in your life, what kind of pain you want to sustain. Answering this question might even get you somewhere and change your perspective. Wanting an end result, but hating the process that gets you there, means that you probably actually don't like or even want the thing you think you want. Process is the most important part, and if you hate it, you're likely to fail or just give up along the way. Takeaway number 4. Choosing the right values. We often tend to use a bunch of wrong values to quote-unquote score our success and prioritize our life around, that lead to problems that can hardly be solved, thus making our lives way more complicated and us way more miserable than we should be. Those values are pleasure, material success, always being right, and staying positive. Generally speaking, good values are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate and controllable. Bad values are superstitious, socially destructive, and not immediate or controllable. Values are what self-improvement is actually all about. Prioritizing the right values and choosing better things to care about, and improving in that regard, while ignoring the irrelevant ones. Now, there are 5 counterintuitive values that, according to the author, are the most beneficial values that one can adopt. Radical responsibility, uncertainty, failure, rejection, contemplation of one's mortality, and most importantly, the habit of smashing the like button for the algorithm. We will now go over them one by one. Takeaway number 5. Radical responsibility. We don't always control what happens to us, but we always control how we interpret what happens to us as well as how we respond. It's really simple actually. The more responsibility we choose to accept, the more power and influence we have over our lives. Accepting our problems is the first step towards solving them, and it's impossible to solve a problem if you don't even accept that it's there. Even if somebody else is to blame for the way you feel, only you are responsible for your feelings, as you can't control others, but you can control your own emotions. And no, trying to push the responsibility over to somebody else will not solve the problem. Who you are and the way you feel is the result of your own actions and responsibility towards them that you took or didn't take. Simply giving into a victim mentality and doing nothing about your problems cause you think you're powerless is guaranteed to get you nowhere. While taking the responsibility and acting towards solving the problem is the only way to solve it. Once you start viewing yourself as the root of all your problems and take full responsibility, you'll be amazed by how much more manageable your problems become and how much more positive an effect you can have on your own life. Takeaway number 6. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is the driving force behind all progress and growth, as the one who believes that he knows everything will learn nothing. We can't learn something before we realize that we don't actually know it, so we must always be open to the possibility that we are wrong in order to grow. Uncertainty removes our judgment of others and stereotyping, as well as our judgment of ourselves. If we're not sure about any of those things, we must gain more information and find things out through new experiences. The more certain you try to become about something, the more uncertain that can make you. For example, you can try digging through your partner's phone to find out if they're unfaithful and find nothing. Now, instead of this making you certain that they're faithful as it should, it might keep you second guessing whether they have another phone or just communicate with another person in a different way, and there never seems to be an end to that. Uncertainty makes us admit that our values are imperfect and that we need to work on them. We also must admit that we have problems before we can solve them, and if we are certain that we don't have any, then we won't be able to solve any either. You can try using these questions to bring some uncertainty into your life. What if I'm wrong? What would it mean if I were wrong? Would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current problem for both myself and the others? Takeaway number 7. Failure. Failure is a natural part of the progress towards success. In fact, if anyone is much better than you at anything, it's likely because they have failed at it much more than you have, and vice versa. We should not be afraid to fail, as most successes are made up of many tiny failures. Pain is often also a part of this process, and we shouldn't fear it as it often makes us stronger, more resilient, and less entitled. The most radical changes in many people's lives are triggered by very painful experiences, so welcome pain in your life and learn to act in spite of it being there. Never let the fear of failure stop you from doing something in the first place. Even if the thing you are doing might require inspiration and you are afraid that it won't be good enough and thus fail, start doing it anyway, and once you start doing it, the action itself is likely to inspire you and make you come up with cool new ideas. The progress that you made when you started, quote, just doing something, unquote, might not be of high quality, but the fact that you acted in the face of fear of failure is likely to make inspiration come your way. This is how failure can be used to constantly move you forward. Takeaway number 8. Rejection. We often avoid rejection to make ourselves feel better in the short term, but in the long run, this can make us directionless. You can't truly enjoy something if you don't reject the alternatives. If you choose a value for yourself, you are rejecting many other values with that choice. If we value something, we're going to care about it, which means that we'll also have to reject and not care about its opposites and sometimes also alternatives. If you have chosen yourself a partner to marry, for example, that means that you must reject alternative partners, and hopefully you will. The same way choosing our values defines us, we are also defined by what we choose to reject. Even though it's very common for us to want more and think more is always better, that's not always the case. In fact, we are often way happier with less. The more options we are given, the less we tend to be satisfied with whatever we end up choosing, because we are aware of all the other options that we rejected. But if you commit to a limited number of options, you by default reject all the others, and this problem is eliminated, as through your commitment they were never actually viable options in the first place. Commitment allows a much greater focus on a few things that are really important to you and lets you achieve more success with them than you normally would have achieved, while the complete rejection of all the alternatives ends up liberating you. Takeaway number 9. Contemplation of one's own mortality. Try thinking about what you'll leave behind when you die. What will the world remember you for, and what's gonna make your name memorable forever? Death is the only certain thing in our lives, so ignoring that fact doesn't make much sense really. But we can use this fact as a compass that lets us choose the correct values and act upon them with the inevitability of death in mind. If your values stretch far beyond yourself and for the benefit of others, the inevitability of death will sound way more comfortable to you. Once we become comfortable with the inevitability of our own death, the anxiety it causes will disappear, and we get to choose our values more freely instead of being restricted by the illogical quest for immortality. To summarize, the problem of caring too much. Caring too much about too many things is not very good for your mental health. It makes people superficial and fake on top of that. Feedback loops from hell make it even worse. True happiness lies in caring only about things that are true and actually important. The art of not caring. You can learn to not care about useless things by learning how to choose what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you based on your personal values. Bear in mind that this is not indifference to everything. It's just not caring about things that you shouldn't care about in the first place. Happiness comes from solving problems. Avoiding problems only makes you miserable, so we could say that happiness is an activity and not something that passively comes to you. True happiness is when the problems you have are the ones you enjoy solving. choosing the right values. Generally speaking, good values are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate and controllable. Bad values are superstitious, socially destructive, and not immediate or controllable. These are 5 counterintuitive values that, according to the author, are the most beneficial values one can adopt: radical responsibility, uncertainty, failure, rejection, and contemplation of one's own mortality. Radical responsibility. Once you start viewing yourself as the root of all your problems and take full responsibility, you'll be amazed by how much more manageable your problems become and how much more positive an effect you can have on your own life. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is the driving force behind all progress and growth, as the one who believes that he knows everything will learn nothing. We can't learn something before we realize that we don't actually know it, so we must always be open to the possibility that we're wrong in order to grow. Failure. Failure is a natural part of progress towards success. We shouldn't be afraid to fail, as most successes are made up of many tiny failures. Rejection. Commitment allows a much greater focus on a few things really important to you and lets you achieve more success with them than you normally would have achieved, while the complete rejection of all the alternatives ends up liberating you. Contemplation of one's own mortality. If your values stretch far beyond yourself and for the benefit of others, the inevitability of death will sound way more comfortable to you, so use the fact that you will die eventually as the ultimate moral compass. Thank you for watching, and I really hope this video was useful to you. As a final note, let me just clarify that this is a summary of a book. It's not my opinion or any kind of advice. You and only you are responsible for the consequences of your own action and inaction. With that out of the way, there's one new book summary out every week, and much more investing and motivation related content is on the way, so feel free to subscribe for more content, ring the notification bell, leave a like on this video so more people can actually see it, and share it with a friend if you think it will help them. I'll see you next week, so enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye!